Christine, can you briefly introduce yourself to our audience? Who are you? What is your job? And what do you especially like about it?
My name is Christine. My job title is Innovation Expert, which means that I drive activities to create and develop new solutions within our prioritized areas of innovation, together with the team of Palfinger 21st. I like about Palfinger that we are open to explore roads less traveled and that we accept challenges that are connected to that. About my job, I really like to be working with people from different parts of the organization based in various regions. I can learn a lot from them and I enjoy connecting people and building bridges between them, their needs, and also new solutions.
Is innovation a challenge to be accepted, or is it a journey, or is it both?
For me, it's definitely both. To bring innovation to life, it can be very challenging. Well, first of all, when you launch innovation activities for the first time, when you try to develop new solutions, or you take tough decisions, as well as when you aim to grow or even scale your solution further. All of this is part of the innovation journey. So for me, all of these steps in the innovation journey hold challenges, but this is what it makes interesting.
Would you please describe the idea of an innovation challenge?
With an innovation challenge, which in our case is an internal global call to submit new, innovative solutions for specific questions, we follow various goals. Well, first of all, we aim to activate and leverage the creative potential of Palfinger employees. Second, we want to spark the light of innovation in the organization and build an innovation culture. And third, of course, we want to strengthen the capacity to develop and build new solutions that can hold and last in the long run.
What are the lessons learned from last year's Innovation Challenge?
Last year, the Innovation Challenge was held for the very first time. So obviously there's tons of lessons that I could share. But I'd like to focus on the success factors of an innovation challenge. And obviously they vary in different organizations. But one key aspect, if you ask me, is definitely regular communication. So keeping people in the loop and sharing information with them ongoing, so that it's not a one-off, but it is, as I mentioned earlier, it becomes part of the culture. Second aspect that I would say is crucial for the success of an innovation challenge is that you manage to connect the topic or the question of the challenge with the organization, so that the answers and solutions that people share and hand in are actually relevant. And what is more, if you then start developing these solutions that were selected, that can be connected to the organization and that they are not standalones. They actually solve a problem that a part of the organization, a unit of the organization has sufficiently. And this is a tricky one if you ask me, it needs both. It needs support top down as well as bottom up. So let's imagine you build a bridge, you need to start to build it from both ends, otherwise you will end up nowhere. So on the one hand side, it's really important to have the buy-in of management and leadership that actually say, yes, we commit to this, we want to invest into innovation as such, and then choose that method of an innovation challenge. And we will then also support people once they have handed in their ideas to develop them further. And then the second pillar, the bottom up, or the peer group, your colleagues. we shouldn't definitely not underestimate the power of these informal networks, the informal communication that on the one hand side share information about, hey, there is a challenge out there, want to participate, and on the other hand side also motivate people that motivate each other and support each other once they are in a development phase. So in my opinion, these factors are key for an innovation challenge to be successful. But then, as I also said earlier, it depends on the setup of an organization.
So it is all about tapping into the creative potential of an organization. Talking about creative potential, how can it be stimulated to become a part of everyday life?
Well, that's a tough one because people are different. On the one hand side, it definitely depends on the personality, personal interests, or also habits of people. Who you are, what motivates you, how do you prefer to work, all of these aspects you need to know about yourself in order to know how your creative potential can be stimulated. And this is obviously then hard for a team like Palfinger 21st to know all of these aspects of all our colleagues. But we're definitely trying. And on the other hand, it's about the framework. So what's the organizational setup and the framework that's provided, and how does it accept, or not just accept, let's say, stimulate or foster innovation or innovative behavior. Because if, let's say, you come up with an idea and all your colleagues say, that won't ever work, no, we've seen that before, we tried that, that's not really motivating. So would you do that? Would you share your idea again the next time? Maybe not. So this is again an informal framework, but also the formal framework. So where would they bring in these ideas? Who would collect them? Who is in charge of screening them and selecting the most promising ones, and so on and so forth? So there's a variety of aspects that, in my opinion, are connected to how to stimulate innovation. It's, as I said, the informal one, the cultural one that we are all definitely part of, and on the other hand side, the formal, more organizational dimension that builds a process or a container that can hold all of these ideas, and so on and so forth.
How can creativity and daily routine go hand in hand?
Well, similar to what I shared before, it really depends on who you are and how you tick. In my opinion, I try to do something different every day. So make a conscious choice that you want to learn something new and break routines. And I know it's hard, and I definitely don't succeed every day, but still keep it in mind, stay curious and open-minded, and let yourself be surprised.
Is the Innovation Challenge an explicit invitation to think outside the box and to break the daily routine?
Yes and no. It depends. I would say in our case, or in the case of this year's Innovation Challenge, focusing on logistics of the future, it definitely is or was the invitation to everyone to think outside of the box and imagine how solutions could look like in the future. But if we think further, and I imagine Palfinger to have innovation challenges on a regular basis, not just once a year, but several a year, then different product lines could host challenges like these, innovation challenges. Then they might narrow down the solution space because they are looking for answers in a very specific dimension. And then they need to give you the boundaries where you can imagine outside of the box, but then it's obviously a bit less outside, if you know what I mean. But in general, I would say if an organization commits to innovation, it should be part of that commitment to also allow for ideas that are outside of the box, because otherwise you won't leap forward. You might make improvements, or in an innovation language we call them incremental, but you won't really ever develop ideas that are so-called disruptive, that are further out and that you could leapfrog and end up in a place that you haven't imagined before.
What will the differences be between last year's Innovation Challenge and this year's event?
Besides Andreas Klauser, who's very supportive of the Innovation Challenge, we have 3 sponsors, being Andreas Hille, Gerhard Sturm and Philip Smole. They committed to being very supportive of the Innovation Challenge as well. How? They bring in slightly different angles and therefore questions to the overall topic, logistics of the future. And what is more, they have committed to really support the further development of ideas that were selective, provide knowledge and access to resources to make sure that the ideas that were selective, actually have a chance to succeed and become reality, so to speak. What is more, we are also putting more emphasis on the development phase, meaning the actual challenge starts with the final pitch, where the last 2 to 3 ideas are awarded. Because coming up with an idea is one thing, but then the hard part starts. Trying to figure out whether there is a proof of concept or even a proof of value. And in order to make sure that this can happen, winning ideas will receive a lot of support from our team, but also, if needed, financial resources to make the next steps in their development journey.
Can you imagine the Innovation Challenge to become all virtual?
Well, yes, in fact, it already is, because we are using a platform where people can submit their ideas. We're using it to communicate with our colleagues. Also, the evaluation is done via the platform. So, in theory, yes. In practice, maybe I'm a bit traditional in that sense, but I do think there is value in actually meeting people physically and collaborating. So I prefer to have it as a hybrid, to also have certain formats where people come together and together imagine a solution for a problem. But yes, the digital aspect certainly helps, and I'm really happy that we have it, because otherwise the challenge wouldn't have been possible with this year's circumstances.
If innovative and creative thinking is implemented successfully within an organization, are innovation challenges still necessary? Or will they just become part of the daily routine, the daily disruptive idea, for example?
Well, that would be brilliant. In my opinion, both has its charm. So on the one hand side, yes, I'm working towards us an organization to having innovation as fundamental part of our culture. And that would mean, yes, people are coming up with ideas on a regular basis. But on the other hand side, I think it makes sense to put the spotlight on certain aspects, questions, topics, and then create the buzz. I don't know how you are wired, but I'm definitely a person who needs a deadline. So that's why I think an innovation challenge as such makes sense, because people like to work towards deadlines, and then usually the most ideas come in short before you close the call. And therefore I think it still makes sense to have it in one way or the other.